Alrighty.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Amy and Jackie here with Design Your Life podcast. And today we have our very first special guest. We are so excited to welcome Julia Barbaro, a friend of ours. And she is a homeschool mom of 6, a wife, and together with her husband, Gino, they host the Julia and Gino Show, where they focus on raising a family and running a business. And Julia, I can attest to this, is the author of The Cannolis Exploded, a Gelato Blast, and Pizza with a Purpose books. Super cute, adorable books. I love them. I give them as gifts to people. And those are for all ages, encouraging responsibility, creativity, and decision-making. And she is a certified Christian life and marriage coach, as well as a certified high performance coach. And Julia and our family live here in St. Augustine with me. Unlike, Cicely, Amy over here.
Yeah, the out here.
Welcome, Julia. We're so excited to have you.
Oh, ladies, thank you for having me. I'm excited. We've already chatted for quite some time, and I forgot that we were even doing this.
Yes.
So, I love it.
You were doing our catch up beforehand, so you didn't have to listen to us catch up on the podcast.
But it was all good stuff, though. That's the sad part.
I know. We're like, we should have been recording because this was just a podcast in itself. But here we go. We'll give you some value and some content here. So I don't do you want to ask questions? Do you want to just chat? Because we can start off with some questions. I think that would be good, because then we can just kind of flow into a conversation. But at least it'll give us something. The one thing I've always wanted to know, Julia, is how do you do it all? I am not kidding you. I really admire you. I've seen you just kind of we talk about the wholeness arena here with all of the different areas of your life, and you just really embody those. And I would love to hear how you accomplished so much.
Thank you, Jackie. That is a huge question. I know. It's funny because I think a lot of people, and I do the same thing, and I'm sure we all know of someone that does this, but we look at other people and we're like, wow, they have it all together. They have it all. How do they do it? And we're always trying to see, what are the secrets behind? Now, to me, I don't have it all. To me, I'm not put together. And I just want to put that out there to all you ladies listening, that we always compare ourselves to everyone else. It's like, how do I get what you have? I struggle every morning. I wake up. And I think for me, how I have what I have, which, is enough right now, I have to say. But I wake up in the morning and I'm like, God, whatever you want, wherever you want me today. And I think that was the one thing that I figured out later in my marriage and my having children, is that I was trying to be in control of everything that happened. And little by little, kid by kid, I realized, wow, I am not in control. I am so far from it. And it would frustrate me early on, because I was like, I need to have the house clean. I need to have cooking. I need to do all these things. The kids have to be perfect. And we were homeschooling, and the kids had to be level, whatever that was, like a grade level. They weren't reading enough. It wasn't good enough. And so everything I did wasn't good enough. It literally took me to have 5 children. And one of our kids, she had this breath holding spell, and she'd have seizures and stuff. And I'm sitting there looking at my little girl, having a seizure. And I'm like, holy cow, I am not in control. And it was so eye-opening for me, but it took me so long to realize that. And so I said, okay, God, wherever you want me today. And that's all I could handle, was right now. Where do you want me right now? And so it became where, my day is still structured. I do have lists all over the place. I have great memo things. I write my goals down. I do all that. I have all that because, I have to be slightly orderly, but at the same time, it's also letting go of the control that I don't have anyway. And so when something comes up, I just go along my day and someone needs help. The thing that I never say anymore is I don't have time. My life's too busy. I don't say those things to myself anymore, because I feel like those were the things that would get me anxious. I can't help you. Sorry, I can't help you. And so that's really what it is. I wake up in the morning wherever you want me, and I will never say, sorry, I don't have time for you, to anyone. Within reason. I want to make sure we all understand that within reason, because sometimes people take advantage. Sometimes people use your time. And so I mean within reason, for real. But That's two of the ways that I'm just like, where do you want me next? Where,
Mhm.
how can I serve you? So yeah, I don't know if that's an answer for you, Jackie.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I love that answer because I really feel like that's something that, in the beginning, as you said, women tend to compare themselves and everything else. But that, I think both of you ladies, like Amy and Julia, both, you inspire me so much because you have that realness to you. Like, you don't have this need to control things, because I've been there too. And of course, I always say it was the hardest lesson in the world when we lost Michaela, but that was the moment I realized I have control of nothing. Well, I have control of very little. I do have control of things but the schedule, I was horrible at schedules. And so, working with Amy, I learned, okay, I've got to have some kind of a schedule. Like I've got to have a plan. I've got to have things, or it's just going to be a chaotic day. And
Mhm.
that's where, those types of things are so helpful. And especially because I have two children, living. And so you guys have more kids. And I've always said, oh, you've got so many kids. How do you do it all? And I realized that, that's just some of it is you've got to have that structure, no matter how many kids you have, no matter whether your kids are grown and out of the house or they're still at home. So I love that. And I think that that's perfect. Perfect answer.
That is a very beautiful answer, to be able to have that knowledge of yourself, right?
Mhm.
And when you know what you know, after you didn't know what you knew,
Mhm.
it becomes that place like, okay, well, I know that I need this type of structure because God is a God of order, right? He's
Yes,
a God of beauty and holiness and goodness. And that's what he desires for us in
absolutely.
that lesson and in that life, right? So, okay, well, I've got to get my life ordered and design and beautiful and not chaotic.
Mhm.
Because while we have this culture where it becomes permissible to be messy and
Yeah.
chaotic, which causes cognitive dissonance, right?
Mhm.
And while we say, oh, well, my kids know that they were loved and wonderful, yes, they're going to see that, but they're also going to see mom and dad
Mhm.
stressed out, chaotic, um, not, I don't want to say not put together, but in a way of just chaotic,
Yeah.
and that's not God. And that's not that reflection. So having that place of where you're fluid in your organization, where your organization skills, where you allow things to happen and flow throughout the day, but you have some type of order.
Yeah.
Like, from this time to this time is homeschool time, because we all homeschool, and this time to this time is when we start dinner or whatever. But having it fluid enough to say, oh my gosh, there's a monkey wrench that was just put in there.
Yeah.
I can pivot,
Yeah.
right?
I
Quick to
love
pivot.
that. I love that, Amy, because I 100% agree. And I think that's where we have to let go of the control, right? Because I have lists. So in the morning, I'll wake up. This is the big, this is the, like, ladies listening. I think I think the phone has caused us to become addicted to just scrolling and to a lot of wasted time. So I
Mhm.
just encourage you to think about that and think about how much time that you waste on there. And so after I get up, after I pray in my bed, before I open my eyes, I do have okay, here's what I have to do today. Here are my priorities. This is what I have to do. And of course, I almost to the point where school is not even on there for the kids. That sounds terrible, but I just know it's just part of my life at this point.
Mhm.
Um, and so I do have priority lists to make. And I hold myself to that. Um, because like you said, I love what you said about God being a God of order, because it's not a messy, chaotic world. And if our life is like that, it's a time to sit down and say, okay, how can I get my life in order? And I think
Mhm.
just making a list and making a schedule and writing priorities down and literally crossing them out throughout the day, if that's what you need to do, is so helpful. Because
Mhm.
when our mind is so cluttered with chaos, we're like in a bad mood. I'm just going to be honest. We're
Yeah,
cranky. We're
Yeah.
yeah.
cranky. And I think to declutter our mind, sometimes it starts with decluttering our house,
Yes.
decluttering our closet, our bathrooms, bathroom closets, and all that stuff. Because I sometimes, like, twice a year, which I like to do more than that, but we will declutter the whole house.
Mm.
And
Mm.
the kids notice how calm I am afterwards. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Do you notice how you feel
Yes.
so good?"
Yes.
Why is that? Because like we walk into a room, we see clutter, and so we get overwhelmed. And now we have it in our head that, man, I got to get to my closet. I got to get to. So it's there. We're thinking about it, whether we know it or not. And so once we start decluttering little by little our life, like physically decluttering, our mind also gets decluttered, which is so freeing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
dishes when they're done, it's like the magic thing in
Yeah.
my
Right.
house right now. That's our season. Like, because my Joseph, he loves to bake, and he even has his like little bakery that he calls, what does he call it? A dessert first, right?
Yes.
So I have a lot of dough and sugar that's now sticking to my counters and my floor. And so there are times where I'm like, okay, I have to do my square breathing.
Yeah.
Somebody's about to get it. You know? Like, but just having those dishes and waking up to a clean sink is like,
Mhm.
the you see the heavens starting to part, the
Yes.
angels
Yeah.
coming and singing. Like that's much it does for your mama's heart, you know?
Yes.
Your wife's
I don't
heart, if you're listening to this, your wife's heart, this is what it does.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and I was going to say, I don't know if that's the same for men, obviously, but I know that's in the morning. If I come into a clean kitchen, I'm just like, the world is so open for any possibilities today. Maybe I can make my sourdough that takes 24 hours and I'm resisting doing it because the sink is full of dishes. It's a whole different perspective. And I've always said, Julia, cluttered house, cluttered mind, because ever since I read that, I'm like, okay, I got to keep that in mind, because then I wonder, why am I feeling so crazy and out of control right now? And I just have to look around and see the kitchen table full of stuff. Like that's our parking ground, and it drives me crazy. But I'm like, it takes 2 minutes to put stuff away. But I have to be intentional about that. And I also have to express that to my family and say, you know, I can't just expect them to I do have a tendency to expect them to just read my mind. But I love, you know, knowing that I have
like a gift from your husband, right?
Yes,
You just want them to know
exactly.
what you want.
That was a perfect segue into what do you no, I'm just kidding. That's a whole nother podcast we'll have you on. Husbands and gifts, because we discovered that was a really good one today that we need to talk about soon.
Well, you mentioned the kids real quick, and you mentioned the kids, and the kids feel this way too, and our husbands do too. We just don't feel what they feel. And
Right.
so like I don't, you know, and I think for years and years it was just like, oh, I'm the mom, I should clean up. I should take care of the house. And which is true to a point, but then we have to pass it along to them. And I think
Right.
we're teaching them maybe the wrong, because you know, we've all gone through, I know people that are so strict with the house to the point where the kids can't put anything, like it's uncomfortable to be over because the kids can't make a mess or whatever it is. And so we always try to find a balance, and sometimes it goes the other way. And so it's always changing. So I realized, I'm like, let me give the kids like a gift. Like I love cleaning. I love organizing. Some of them don't. They just don't. Some of them do. But the ones that do, I'm like, hey, you want to organize the closet with me? And they're like, yeah, okay. And so we do it together, and it's fun, and we actually have fun with it. And I think that's the what we forget as parents. It's like housework, chores can actually be fun if you let them have fun with it. You know, I actually hired my girls. I hired 3 of my girls to clean the house. I used to have cleaning people come in once a week, and we would complain about them. And I'm like, my gosh, we're complaining about them. I'm like, I know you girls could do better because you know what we're looking for. And so like, I will pay you what I pay them. And they're like, really? And I said, yeah. And guess what? I don't hear any complaints. They get up and they go. I don't even tell them to do it. I'm like, this is the time. This is the day. And I know a lot of people like, you pay them to do what they're supposed to do. I'm like, no. We still clean up during the day. It's not, this is like you know what I mean? This is a housework, you know, floors that we never get to type of thing. But I think to think outside the box a little bit with our family might be a good, if we're doing the same thing over and over again for years and just frustrated that no one's cleaning up, no one's putting away their stuff, try something different, you know?
Yeah.
It's really worked right now, just to be clear. So it's working right now.
Yes.
Next year, it might not be working.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great example of seasons of life where things change and you have to be able to pivot and things like that. But it's so great when we, because I did that for so long, especially, having boys. I grew up in a household with my dad was very much, the male chauvinist. But it's so important because I didn't know how to be a homemaker because my mom did everything. She absolutely loved everything just a certain way, and none of us could ever do it that way. And so she would just be like, okay, I'm just going to do it myself. But then when I got out into a home and I was like, how do I clean? How do I cook? And so that helped me to learn with my kids that I need to be more intentional about that and understand that I have to let go of, if you don't fold the towels the exact same way I do, it's okay. I will learn to live with it.
Right. But just as long as you're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. If you do it without David, he loves to bake, like, you said Joseph does. He does not like to clean up after himself. And I have said there's no magic fairy in this house who comes and just cleans everything up beautifully behind you. That's your mother. So, when you love your mom, you wash the dishes. Mother Teresa said that, right? We talked about her in Albania. And that was what she said, wash the dish because you love the person who's going to use it next or something. I'm paraphrasing, but and that's something I learned from you, Julia, watching your cooking shows, like your videos that you guys do. And that was something so key that you said, like, I wash the dishes as soon as we're done.
Yeah,
so
that's
you're a big Italian family. You guys do a lot of baking, cooking, everything from scratch, I assume.
Yep.
When you have time, I'm sure.
Oh no, it's a house full of cooking. That's feel like that's all we do sometimes. And it's like a full lunch, full breakfast, full lunch for dinner. And it's one of those things that my kids didn't realize that other people didn't do that. It was very interesting because someone said, "Oh, we try to have a family meal once a week." And they're like, "What do you mean? What does that mean?" And I'm like, "Listen, some people don't have what you have. You have no idea." Because we will sit down for dinner definitely every night. Most of the times for lunch as well, though. And I think that's what is lacking in the world right now. And that's why we started the Gino's Family, which was a cooking show, because we're trying to encourage families to cook together, because there's something so beautiful about standing in the kitchen with your whole family and coming up with this meal, because it's food, right? And we cook it together, and then we sit down and we have a meal together. And that's where you really connect with people, is over food, right?
Isn't it?
It's amazing.
The Italians always said it right.
Yeah. And so is it exhausting? Is it messy? Is it time consuming? Yes. But is it worth it? Of course it is. And I think, you all know, you get takeout or you just, have cereal for dinner, whatever it is. It's not the same because you have the smells, you have the cooking, you have the service, right? You're serving
Station.
It's the conversation behind it. It's not just the food itself. It's creating a meal together. And so even if you don't do it, try it at least once. Try it once a week. And then at that point, try it twice a week, just little by little, because it does get overwhelming. Yes, there is a lot of cleaning, but the cleaning part can be fun too. It's not always. My kids complain. They don't want to, what I mean? But for the most part, we're all together. And I think that's the beauty of family, is to do stuff together. And that's when you bond. And, as a mom, like you were saying, Jacki, your mom always wanted to do things. That's the thing. It's like, teach the kids and then get out of the kitchen and stand on the other side. And if they're like, am I doing this right? You're doing a great job. However it comes out, because that's how they're going to learn. And and sometimes, I'll sit there sometimes and not cook anything. It's the most amazing thing ever.
Wow.
It doesn't come out the way I want it, but I'm okay with that. Next time it comes out, I'm like, you know what? This is excellent. If you added a little bit more salt, it would be, and they're like, oh, okay. So next time they'll add some more salt, and I think that's the key, is just not being so controlling, because it's hard to step away from that. It's like, we want it this way. We want the dishes done this way. We want the towels folded this way. And if you don't do it, and then they're not going to do it. I love how you folded the towels. Can you show me how you did it? I actually like it. Like, to say that to a child, it's like, oh, okay, let me try something else. See if my mom likes it this way. So I think it's something to think about,
Yeah. I love that suggestion. I wrote it down. I'm like, once a week, I can do that. I think we could do, because I am super controlling in the kitchen.
Yeah.
One of my hangups. And
Well, you're
I
used
get
to it, Amy. You've been doing it for years. So of course you have
yeah,
a way. And your
right,
kids were
yeah.
little. So it's like, here's what we do. And
Yeah.
it's so amazing when we're like, I'm not going to be controlling today.
Mm.
Oh, okay, I love that. That's a good script. I
I
am
was
not
gonna
gonna be
say, I'm
controlling
writing that
today.
script down. I am not
Putting that
going to be
down.
controlling today.
And if you are, be like, listen, you know what, Joseph, you know what, you do it your way. I want to watch how you do it. And even if you are, it's not too late. It's not like, oh, forget it. I'll try it another time. Just start over.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's
I think
really
that
that's
right
a
there
good
is
idea.
so key because, you know, my youngest is 16 now and Brian's about to turn 20 on Friday. I will not
Oh my
cry.
gosh.
But it's just so like, you know, I always think, oh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done that. No, start doing it now. Like now I'm aware. So I just have to take it and run with it. I can't look at the past. I mean, I can obviously look back and say I could have done this differently, but let me try this now. And I think that that's the key because we get stuck so many times on like, oh, I wish I'd done this or I should have done this differently or whatever. And like, you know, and sometimes our kids stay home, but also, you know, like it's never too late. I've said this to my husband a bunch of times. Like it's never too late for us to do the things with Brian, even. He might live an hour and a half away from us, but we can still do things, you know, to reconnect with him and he can have his autonomy, but he also is part of this family still, you know, he's not gone. He's just grown up and doing his own thing now. So I think that's so beautiful.
One of the things that I wanted to, if we don't mind like switching gears here for
Yeah.
a second, one of the things that really kind of hit home was that you were writing down like the traditional way, like you actually take a pen or and you take a paper.
Yeah.
As opposed, because one of the things that I did do for my own New Year's resolution is, you know, starting to create those priorities, but I'm doing it on an app. And I have this internal struggle with it's just one more thing to be on the phone again. And you had said something really important that, you know, we're addicted to our phones and we are absolutely. And it's like, if there was an app to teach you how to poop, there probably is one, you know,
I will not be
it
checking. I'll just take your word for it.
I bet you some people out there are going to be, I wonder if there is. However, with that said, I mean, do you find it's better to just try to do it the traditional way where you're writing things down just on a simple notepad? It doesn't have to have, you don't have to go on Amazon and buy this ornate, or if it does help you, then buy it, but this ornate planner of some sort. I mean, you're just doing it pad and pencil. Traditional.
There's something so amazing about the old fashioned way of handwriting, writing it down with a pen. It's something with your brain. You know, here's the thing. I do have a calendar on my phone that attaches to everyone in my family. And so for that reason, I have a calendar on there. You know, I can see where my husband's doing. I can see where my kids are. Because it helps me to make a schedule during the day. But no devices in the morning. Here's a big challenge. Wake up in the morning, pray, whatever you normally do for 1 hour. Don't touch a device. Don't check anyone's Instagram, anyone else's life. You don't need to know about their life in the morning. Take a paper, take a pen, and write down what your plan is for the day. Because we have all these priorities and we forget about them midday. We're like, wait, oh, that's right. I forgot to do that today. I'll do it in a minute. And then we get into something else or whatever it is. It's like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot. Why did I forget? Well, we didn't write it down. It was a priority, but we let it slip by because we didn't really want to do it, to be honest.
Yes.
So if we have a book, if we have a notebook, yes, if you're the type that needs a fancy notebook like me, I have like 20 of them in my house. They're all over my desk and I do fill them up. And I will check, okay, what is today? What is my priority? I'm going to put my number one priority on top, and then I'm going to put all the other things on the bottom. And here's the thing. A lot of times what we do is we have these goals, we have these ideas, and we see them and we're so overwhelmed and we're like, forget it. I'm not going to do that today. I'll just do these little things. I'll do the little simple things that I can do that I'm used to doing. And so the day goes by, the next day goes by. And it's like, why am I not getting to that priority? Well, because it's too difficult. That priority is too difficult for me. So I'm not going to do it. And so what I do is I'll write my priority. If it's difficult, I'll give myself simple little steps to get there. Let's say you want to do a website. I don't know. Maybe you want to, I don't know. There's something major you want to do. What's the first step to get there? Because we can follow little steps very simply. But when I have a big goal and I really want to achieve it, it's so overwhelming that I'm going to put it off as long as I can because I need help. And I'm not going to ask for help because I don't want to seem weak. So therefore, I'm not going to ask anybody. So you can say, okay, if I need help, who can I ask? If I need assistance, who can I ask? What's my first step? What's my next step after that? And give myself a whole stepping stones in order to achieve that goal. And every single time you cross one up, cross it off. Okay, what's my next step? Because sometimes we do have these great ideas, especially when we have kids and we have a lot, sometimes we have a lot of time. We're doing the dishes. I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I did this? But they're so big and overwhelming. Like just write them. And every day you can do a little at a time. You don't have to, take on the world that day, but you can one step closer, you know what I mean? And it has been a huge help for me because otherwise, Jackie, you said, how do I do what I do? That's how. Because otherwise I'm just trying to figure out, okay, moment by moment. Okay, what do you need? Okay. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, well, what did I accomplish today? What actually did I accomplish? And so, at the end of the day, have a journal because I'm so all about journaling because it really helps us. Okay, what did I do today? How could I have done that better? I had a conversation with my husband or whatever it was. How could it have been better? What could I have done differently? And then tomorrow now I have another plan. It's like, okay, if that comes up, here's how I'm gonna address it.
I love that. I love that.
So I love paper and pen. It is your biggest friend. Go buy them.
One of one of my son, as I was saying, is going back to the States, and he was getting overwhelmed, way overwhelmed with all the things that he's going to need to do once he's on his own. And one of the things that we do in the women's school is called a 1-4-5 DGA. So you have a 1 dream, you have 4 goals, and you have 5 actions. So it's a 1 dream 1-4-5 DGA. So dream, goal, actions. That's what we have. And I put it in front of him and I said, what is your dream? He goes, not to be the 30-year-old in my parents' basement. I said, okay, that's your dream. Let's put it down there, right? Absolutely. So what are your goals going to be to get to that? Well, I'm going to need a job and I'm going to need my license and I'm going to need this. And so we put it out there and then, okay, well, what are our actions now? Well, I'm going to need to graduate. I'm going to need to go get my testing done. And it spelled it out for him. And you literally saw the relief. Yes. Oh yeah, that's right. This isn't so bad. And I said, go ahead and put that on your, your window or door or whatever, just so you're seeing that every day. Like, oh, that's my goal. I'm not going to be the kid, the 30-year-old in my parents' basement.
That's right.
That's a good goal.
I like that
goal. That's awesome.
It's a really good goal.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I wrote that down too, like the little steps, because I do, I have the 1-4-5 DGA and I forget, sometimes even when it's right in front of me, because you really have to keep those things in front of you to remember what's the overall goal. When maybe in this moment, I'm doing this particular thing and it doesn't feel like I'm achieving that goal, but I really am because I'm just at least becoming more disciplined in doing what I'm doing. So I absolutely love that advice. And I think that's one of the best things about having friends who are coaches too. You're all kind of growing together, but sometimes you have like this idea that, maybe I'm already implementing it in a different way, but like the way that you say it is just a little bit different than how I say it or do it, but it clicks a little better, and I love that. Like it just really clicked all of a sudden. Like, oh,
I need to hear it different ways. Yeah.
Yeah. But it just makes more sense sometimes when someone else says it. So yeah, I love that. And I think that, we're learning these skills, but we're also able to teach them to our kids so they learn them sooner than we did. And I love seeing the progress that they make, because they won't be 35 years old going, I'm a mess. What do I do?
Mhm. Yeah,
They can, pivot a lot better and quicker than I did, and so I love to see that too, because I don't ever take anything as, anymore. Since, and I have to say, like, I've worked with Julia too, way back when, and both of you guys have really just helped me so much to see, the things that I didn't realize I was missing, and being able to, be a functioning adult, but also to just like thrive as a woman and as a wife and a mother, and, in my relationships and things like that. And I'm just blessed. I had to say that. So thank
Welcome.
you, ladies.
Well, I think you just said something important, is that, it's a good question to ask who we're hanging out with,
Yes.
because I never really thought about that until years and years after, like, our kids were older. It's like, well, until I was coaching. And I'm like, all right, I'm asking other people, who are you hanging out with? Who are you spending time with?
Right.
Because it influences you. Those people influence you, whether you like it or not. And
Yeah.
so I had a question, okay, who am I hanging out with? Who am I getting who am I getting advice from? Who am I letting over my house? Even if they're, friends of Gino's from years ago, let's say, or my husband. I'm like, wait a second, they're not good influences. Am I sure I want this? Because we're teaching our children, whether we like it or not, the importance of who you're hanging out with. And it could be negative. We don't even realize it,
Yeah.
and I think that that's something we talk about openly now. It's like, who are your friends? Like,
Mhm.
and and it's obviously we have to help other people, and we have to, but when it comes to the point where they're actually influencing you to do wrong things, then it's like, okay, hold on. Like, if you're trying to influence them, that's one thing.
Right.
But if it's not working, and they're all of a sudden you're noticing you're kind of going off the path a little bit, it's like, hold on a second. So
Yeah.
who are you spending time with, and who are you getting advice from? Because Jackie,
Yeah.
you mentioned something that, I was new to coaching when I talked to you, and I was like, wow, this is actually really helpful for me. Like, to coach you was helpful for me. And I was like, wow,
Mhm.
this is actually, I want to hang out with more people like this, because I'm being influenced by you. And I think that's so huge that we don't realize how big that is.
Yes.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to
Absolutely.
be like, them saying something negative, hanging out with some, like I have, this one, uh, way past friend that would always be like, I'm so angry. I'm so angry all the time. And I'm so angry. And I have to put on this nice face. I started picking that up subconsciously.
Yep.
And I realized that, I want to say, gosh, when I was like 20, 21, and that's when I was like, I'm pulling out of this relationship, because
Mhm.
there were other things, like clubbing and doing all
Mhm.
that other stuff. I was like, oh, wait a minute. She's not influencing me good. And
Mhm.
so, you have to pull out at some point where you're like,
Yeah.
this isn't healthy for me.
Mhm.
And, I'm not going to, yeah, I'm not going to stay around.
Yeah.
But just in case.
And I
But it's
think when,
hard, because what if they're family? That's the
oh
hardest thing
goodness,
ever.
yeah,
What
that
if
is
they're
hard.
family and they're a bad influence on your whole family?
Mm.
And that's been I don't know if you've ever dealt with that, but that's really traumatic for everyone.
Mhm.
And so it has to be a conversation, because a lot of people are like, well, the charitable thing to do is to let, well, hold on. Well, I don't know if that's charitable. Is it
Mhm.
charitable to let people talk badly to your children, or whatever it is, even
Right.
if they're a family? And I think there has to be a conversation. And I think a
Uh-huh.
lot of times we're like, oh, it has to be either you allow it, or you just don't see them ever again. Well,
Mhm.
there's a lot of choices. There's a lot of options that we have to talk about, and you have to do what's right for your whole family. And I think it's really hard, but it's
Yeah.
something to do. Yeah.
And I
That's
think you
one.
bring up a really good point with like our cancel culture today.
Mm.
It's so, you hear so much about, oh, my family's so toxic, I'm just going to like completely cut them out.
Yep.
And our faith, I feel like, teaches us that that's not, exactly how we want to handle things, because, we're all sinners. We all have things that we do. But if we can have those conversations openly and honestly, and is that not the hardest thing to do, is to have that loving, truthful conversation with someone that is toxic? But people can change, people can, I mean, the three of us in our coaching have seen that, like the transformation people make when they're able to have, number one, I can say, and I don't know about you guys, but I can say when you finally acknowledge, like, I need to be self-aware, but I also need to know how I respond to other people, but I also have to have those difficult conversations. It's life changing. Like that could just be the one tweak that maybe is missing from so much of what we're doing. And it's a beautiful gift. And it's, for me, it's become very important, especially for my kids, to learn this, because, you know, I don't want them to grow up thinking they're a victim of everybody's dysfunction. You know, it's no, you know, maybe your friends aren't a good influence, but you don't have to kick them out of your lives immediately. Start having conversations with them where you were put in their lives and their paths to become a good influence. And then if it's not working, you know, you have to reevaluate. But I don't feel like just tossing someone to the curb immediately is a great response. And I love that you said that, Julia.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of times people, you know, you go through, if you think about like family, you go through your whole life. It's like, oh, that's just how they are. And then you have that one conversation and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was doing that all those years. And it changes. And it's like, wow, I could have said that 20 years ago and it could have been different, but I didn't know. I didn't know any better. You know, and then what happens is your kids go through that. And all of a sudden I'm like, should you be allowing that person to treat you that way? What a question that is to ask somebody. And they're like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, why don't you call them out and just say, hey, listen, I don't really like the way you treat me. And one of them did it. And this was a family member. And she didn't have any contact with her for like 2 weeks. And she's all upset. And I'm like, listen, just give her some time. And after a couple of weeks, she contacted her back. She's like, I'm really sorry. And I was like, wow. But we don't know to say it. We don't know to be like, listen, we don't like the way you're treating us or whatever it is. And it's so amazing because it could go either way. It could go like they're insulted and they don't want to talk to you anymore, but just let them know that you love them, but you're not going to allow them to treat you a certain way or to speak to you a certain way. It's very different. I mean, I never thought about it, you know?
It's a powerful tool. Yeah.
Yeah. I had an incident happen like that with one of my family members where, you know, I posted something and this family member got so upset, and it had nothing to do with what she thought it was. And she was just very upset. And she, you know, made sure that I knew. Right. And I was like, okay, you know, and it's funny because I can see the growth from doing the coaching and the women's school and going through all of that, is that I became really grounded in who I was becoming and who I am becoming, that it didn't affect me all that much. I'm like, okay, that's her opinion, right? Not her opinion of me. She didn't like that. I posted it. So it's kind of removed. She didn't like the post, you know? And so I made sure that I brought that out in the conversation, is that you didn't like the post. It's not me that you necessarily don't like. So can we sit down and have that difficult conversation? Right. Can we do that?
And it's helpful if you have a pen and paper and write it down ahead of time. That is actually very helpful, because a lot of times we get into a conversation and we're so overwhelmed. Like, I have no idea. Oh, and you just say things and they don't make sense. And the person sitting there like, what are you talking about? And so what if we write it down? Here's what I want to say. And then if it's a serious conversation, I'm talking, if you write it down openly, whatever, and then go into bullet points, because I'm a bullet point person.
Yes.
here's
that
the points I want to make. And I think it's very helpful, because if you think about it, you're going into like, if you're working somewhere, you go into a meeting, or, you know, you're a teacher and you're teaching something. If you're all over the place, the person listening is like, what are you saying? And you're going to leave confused. So if you're clear, you have clarity on what your points are, you're going to go in prepared. It's important. Go in prepared, go in ready. It's like, here's clear as day what I'm trying to say, and here's what I think, and here's what I'm looking for. Because then, you know, then it really works. I'm going to be honest. It really works at that point. Yeah,
it does. Because I feel like you were kind of shining a light on me in that moment. Like, I can just ramble on forever when I get off topic and don't remember what I was trying to say. And then I'm like, And they do, it overwhelms the person you're talking to. And then they're like, I don't even know where to go with this right now. And then you totally lose your point. And what, you know, there's no effectiveness and the conversation ends with, what was that?
Yeah. Insults. Everyone's insulted.
Yes.
I don't know what I was talking about, man. Like, dang it, I missed that opportunity.
Yes, I totally get what you're saying there. What a skill to work on. But I love, you know, the writing it down, because you know, that's not just old school. It's not, you know, our generation or whatever. It really, truly, there's a science behind it, because they say, you know, when you write something down, it imprints it more on your memory. Right. And I have found that to be true, you know, and I might not remember exactly like what time I have to be somewhere or where I have to be, but I know that I have something on my calendar. So I need to go reference that, because I have my pretty calendar. Well, you can't see it, but I have my pretty calendar I write down, but then also, like you, Julie, I have the family calendar on our phones. So everybody knows, even though I get asked 20 million times a day, what are you doing tomorrow? Part of the calendar.
They just love you. They just love you. And
they just want to talk to me about something, right? Well, and I'm going to go back to one thing that I wanted to say while we were on here. I know that I'm like gushing over, you know, so much of what you do, but like, this is what's inspired me so much, because like we have your cookbook, yours and Gino's cookbook, but yours and Gino's. Because by the way, your chili recipe, still a favorite in my house.
That was mine. That was mine.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. He did give you kudos in the book for that. And I got to tell you, life-changing. I shared it with Amy.
Yes. Thank you.
Have to make this. But that cookbook, I'm not kidding you. I have learned to make things from scratch, and David's making pizza dough now from your book. So when you find something that is just so incredibly helpful, you know, having those steps, because we all feel like we can't do things. But there's so many resources out, like we have the internet, but we also have, you know, like those physical things that really do help us, and let's use them. Like, I don't know why I just felt the need to say that, but like, it's just so important that we take that time away from the internet, but also to learn, you know, you put your hands in something. I watched a video the other day where they said, it was Nona Pia. Do y'all watch her videos? I love her. She squeezes the tomatoes with her hands. And I was like, oh, I could never do that. I did that the other night because I just did not want to dirty up another dish. And I was like, the Italians, like, we really should just kind of write down how they live, because it really is a great way to live. And there's something about squishing tomatoes that feels really weird when you first do it, but it just, using your hands really does help. So whether it's writing or, you know, using your hands to create something, it gives you such a feeling of like confidence in yourself. Hey, I did this, even if it didn't turn out perfectly. And I think overall, that's just, you know, it's such a beautiful gift. All of these things that we've shared here, and all of the things that we have, the tools that we have in life. Let's use those tools.
Yes. Let's use those tools. Oh, that's a perfect wrap up for this. And
we're gonna have to have you back, Julia, because this was
this is fun. Really
fun.
Like, you're gonna be a regular on our podcast when we can get you in here.
This was
so
really
fun. Yes. And really, it was so good to catch up with you. It's, even though we live in the same town, you know, sometimes you just get busy and you don't see each other a lot, but it's so great to see you, and so great to hear all of the wonderful things you're doing. And
thank you.
Just keeping up with you guys is I'm like, oh, there's another podcast Julia's on. I love it.
It's good, but I have to tell you, ladies, you are doing such an amazing thing. Because we all out there, like, you know, I see your show and I'm like, this is what we need. We need more people like you sharing your thoughts and sharing your ideas and your wisdom, because we all go through something different. You know, I think that's the important part, is a lot of times, like we said in the beginning, we compare ourselves with every other woman in the world, and we really do. And I just encourage you to be inspired by them. Instead of compare yourself, what I don't have, you have something different than I do, than Amy does, and Jackie does. And I think that's the whole beauty of each person, is they have something so unique and so different that no one else has. I don't care what kind of education you have, how many children you have, how many homeschool. It doesn't matter. You have something to offer the world that no one else has. And I think that's
Amen.
the beauty of each person, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love it. You're
I
gonna
love
make me choke up here. That was beautifully said, and I feel like there's nothing that we could say after that. I'm just kidding. That is so true, Julia. I'm so glad you shared that with everybody, because that is so important to know. And just us being here today, like, we didn't prepare in advance. We didn't, we did a little bit of like, hey, this is what time you should be here, but it's it's just such a gift to be able to go out and share what you have with the world. And God created us all with a purpose, and we just have to figure out what that is. And sometimes you need some help with that, sometimes you don't. And but you're living a fulfilled life, right?
Thank you. Yes, but I just want to bring back something you said, is that you squished the tomatoes with your hands and you were very uncomfortable. And that is so amazing. I'm thinking about that, because we have to be uncomfortable sometimes and do things that we're not comfortable with. And if that means squishing tomatoes with our hands, I'm sure it came out better than if you didn't, just so you know. And so it's a good thing to think about in life. When we're uncomfortable, it's okay. Do something different if we're uncomfortable, because a lot of times we're just too comfortable, and that's why we're stuck, is that we're just too comfortable. And you ladies know this, but just step out a little bit. Just do one little thing like Jacki. Everyone listening, do one thing uncomfortable like Jacki. Squeeze the tomatoes in the pot
today
with your hands.
With your hands, straight out of the can, juice and all. No worries. You can wash your hands afterwards.
Love it. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Well, ladies, I hope your day is blessed and that you are a blessing to everyone around you. I know you are. So I enjoyed this chat.
Same here. Julia, it was so good to see you again.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies.
You guys.
Thank you.
Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao. We'll see you later.